Hello, everybody. We are live. This is Yissilmissil Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel. Great to have you here today. And we have a special guest. And yeah, give me one second. We have a special guest here today. This is a mentor of mine. Um, I've known this man for many years. He's had a big influence on my career and the trajectory that I went down to get to where I am today. And yeah, so we're gonna invite him in. This is Jim Wunderlich. He is a broadcaster and educator, and let's invite him in here right now. All right, so while we're waiting for Jim, yeah, I'm just gonna talk with you guys here for a minute. Um, so we're doing some stuff with the channel. We're doing a few other things here with interviews. I'm lining up a few more guests to have on the show, and we will be we'll be posting weekly now, and hopefully it'll be a little more consistent than that. So, all right, it seems like he's having a bit of a problem. No worries though. See, this happens. It's video production. It happens. No worries. All right, we'll wait for him to get ready to come back on. So how y'all doing out there today? Good to see you guys here. Good to see there's people watching here. All right, Jim, we're bringing you back in. Jim, can you hear me? It's all good. So yeah, we're
Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. You cannot see me yet, though, for some reason.
Now let me get
It's
this going. It's an epic reveal. Here we are. Yes. Excellent. Oh man. It's been such a long time since I've heard that laugh and seen that smile. Wow.
Good
How's
to
it
see you,
going,
man.
Jim?
It's going well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm hanging in here, you know. I'm still here. So both of us are still here. This is amazing.
It's great. It's good. Good to see you. I'm glad that the Zoom is working. And yeah, I use Zoom actually quite frequently. Just was on it this morning with another group. So anyway, it works now, and that's great. So,
Excellent. Yeah, so I did a short introduction for you here, but I'll go over what's on your website here for word of mouth. So Jim Wunderlich has enjoyed dual careers as a broadcaster and educator. He received his MS in education from Northern Illinois University and his bachelor's associate from Carroll College with a degree in sociology and minors in English, religion, and speech communication. And I know you did the oral communications class, which I think I had Kleinfeld for that class, but well, I had you for broadcasting, so we'll be getting into that a little more. But
Roger
it also,
Kleinfeld was a great man, good man.
yes, he brought me into um, the theater realm. He
Well,
got me that on live stage. Man, that
and you were
was
fantastic on stage. You were
thank you.
fantastic.
Yeah, it was challenging. It made me just grow as an individual, and I got to see the other side with actors and how you need to respond to the rest of the crew.
Oh
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
I got a really good perspective from Kleinfeld and Karen Hall. So that was nice. But yeah, I'll finish introducing you here, Gene. Uh
The
having
introduction might take 20 minutes if I keep interrupting you. So,
Oh no, it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, having worked at radio stations in the Milwaukee, Madison, and Rockford markets, he has extensive experience in a variety of formats, including news, talk radio, top 40 hits, big band, country, and easy listening. In addition to working in radio, Jim has taught a variety of courses at the secondary level for more than 30 years. He spent more than 25 years at Maine East High School, where I attended, teaching radio, TV, film, and oral communication to students representing more than 50 nationalities. And yeah, and our theater building has all of the nationality or the national flags just flanked on both sides of the place. It's really beautiful. And
it's
then
United Nations.
yeah, it truly is. And so, to wrap up your introduction here, upon retiring in 2012, Jim has had the privilege to host Word of Mouth, a live weekly interview program on WRLR FM. And what days and times is that usually on if people want to catch you on that?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm actually on now instead of the every week, I'm on every other week. And so it's on the first and third Thursday of the month, 11 a.m. to noon. And it's a 1 hour interview show where I'll interview somebody for 1 hour. And they can be from all walks of life. Everybody from a Navy SEAL to a rock star. Last week it was a comedian. And then we talk about their career and actually, the obstacles that they had getting to the point that they're at. So it's been really enjoyable. Yeah, I talked to one really interesting one was the youngest female to ever climb Mount Everest,
Oh
and
wow,
so it kind of is all just all things, just about every kind of topic you can imagine. Coming up next, just a little plug. A week from Thursday will be a historian, Jim Gibbons, and it's going to be about the Three Stooges.
nice.
But it goes from the serious to the sublime, and so obviously the Three Stooges is going to be just kind of a fun topic.
Oh yeah, classic TV show.
Yes, yes,
My
yes.
uncle Frankie was a huge fan of him, of the three of them. I remember when I used to visit him in Michigan, he had the VHS tapes of Three Stooges for me to play in a little media room. So that was kind of fun. I like those memories with him.
Well, growing up, they were actually kind of taboo because they were so violent. And
Yeah.
as little kids, your parents didn't want you watching the Three Stooges. They were afraid you'd imitate them. Like you'd go up to somebody's armpit hair and tear it out, You just can't do that.
Well, it's like me wanting to power bomb my like uncle when I was watching wrestling when I was growing up. It's like don't
Yeah,
break the
right.
bed. Don't break the bed.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the pillows were good to use too,
Oh, absolutely.
instead of
Absolutely.
bodies. So that helped a lot. Nobody got injured that way. But no, that's cool. I'm glad you're having a bunch of guests on your show, that it's still going strong. I remember
Still
when you
fun.
first started it, it was I mean I thought it was like, wow, you're still at it, you're still kicking, you're still doing it
Yeah,
after.
I think we finished our, let's see, this would be, I think I started back in 2013, so we were 11 years now. And yeah, it's really just, it's fun. And, we've had some real serious shows as well. So it just kind of runs the gamut. And been lucky to have a lot of variety of guests. So. And we
Very
have a
cool.
new station too. It's brand new facilities at WRLR. Just gorgeous. You could have up to 8 guests if you wanted to have very easily. It's just a state-of-the-art studio too. So it's
Nice.
been,
So there's a lot of space there for you to have your guests in the
yeah,
same room.
it's really state-of-the-art. And we moved a couple of different times in those 13 years. But this final time we've got a standalone building. It's very nice.
What city is it located in?
We're in Round Lake. We're in
Round
Round Lake.
Lake.
Yeah, Round Lake.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. Like
Good to see you. Good to see you.
it's like it's a reunion of old friends. That's how I view this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Even though I've learned a lot from you in your classes, and you did push me to my limits in a good way, in a good way. You challenged me. You saw more in me, and I think uh, you can say that for everybody that's come through your class, everyone that's been graced by your presence. A, a few people I still talk to from my class, my graduating class, Imran Khan.
Oh yeah,
Um,
sure. It's
he's he's
great
constantly being like, "Oh man, like we gotta get back together. We got to do this and that." So like it's really cool. Like your influence continues to this day. So I
Well,
just
I
want
tell
to
you what,
remind you that.
I still remember students' projects. If I hear a particular song, or I see, just I might see even a kernel of popcorn or something, and it'll remind me of a project that a student did. And obviously, Steve, your projects were always very creative and top notch. You always kind of would like to bend the boundary, kind of go a little bit over the edge, and it was always just really fun. Whether it was even the radio too at the beginning until we got into the video as well. So yeah, remember your stuff very well, and here you are still doing videos, so it's good to see. What have you been up to though? I know you're interviewing me, but we haven't touched base. What have you been up to?
So yeah, I've been filming. I've been doing a lot of the gigging for filming. So musicians and weddings, that's like my bread and butter. And I was doing live streaming on location during COVID because all the venues shut down.
Oh my.
And so it was just you had to adapt to it. And like I was out in Grays Lake doing that. So it was all just learn as you go type of thing. And yeah, now I'm doing a little bit more variety with that. I've done a political campaign
Oh,
twice. I've ran for mayor and for library trustee
I
in
do
Niles.
remember you running. Last time I saw you, I think we met at Panera, and you were talking about running at that time. That was a
That's
number of years
right.
ago now.
Yeah.
And what a great experience that had to be.
Oh, it was something else because I mean, collecting the signatures and then figuring out like the correct wording. What does this mean by this percentage? I had to go and like look up numbers from like 4 years prior to just see what like amount of signatures I needed. And I learned I needed to probably have a slate with me. It would have eased collecting the signatures more. You had four people instead of one. And yeah, I learned a lot just about the process, the campaigning process, getting the ads and the signs out to people. It's a lot of work,
Oh my
especially if you're
gosh.
trying to do it on your own. I did have help when the campaign was in motion. I had people helping me, but it was just um it was stressful, but like at the same time I did it because I thought it was a fun idea. Based on I didn't agree with what the current administration was doing and how they were doing it, so I felt I could do it better. And so that's why I threw my hat in. And it was like I shook them up because they didn't expect to have any rivalry on the ballot. They were thinking they were just going to get in with no opponents. And it would
That's
have been that.
outstanding. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, the amount of pressure it takes to be a politician. You kind of get it
Oh,
from all sides, all sides.
I had somebody like the day of the election, after the polls closed, they messaged me on my Facebook page for mayor, and they were starting to ask me Second Amendment questions, and I'm like, the election's over, man. And then they're like, oh, you need to have thick skin and answer these tough questions, Steve. And I'm like, all right, well, yeah, I'm pro Second Amendment. They're like, all right, that's good to know. I'm gonna go tell my friends. I'm like, what? The election's over now, man.
Yeah,
So
wow.
it's even up to that last minute, you could still
Yes.
change people's minds.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's people who go into the ballot box and they're still undecided, and then they just kind of decide there too, surprisingly, But that there's a significant enough of a significant amount of people that it can make a difference. So,
Yeah, and sometimes it's that one person, or
yep.
I mean, in some cases, also two people. I mean, you need to have a group to go out and do canvassing and
Right.
everything. And the more people you have, the more teamwork that you have, then it'll be more efficient. So,
Well,
yeah, I
even
did learn a lot.
at the presidential level too, they were saying in Michigan, it came down to two votes per precinct, two votes per.
Wow.
And so, if you think of it that way, uh, my goodness, such a thin margin.
Yeah,
So,
I know Park Ridge had a seat that went to somebody over 9 votes.
Oh,
So that was the only distinction for the winner.
unbelievable.
So close. And
Yeah,
that's why I say it's important to do that, to go out and vote. I prefer election day because that gets, you make sure that like there's more eyes on everything, is what I'm trying to say.
sure, sure.
Early voting, I mean, we need to trust the process, I guess. But I saw a lot of people
Are you talking about mail-in or are you talking, because
early,
you,
no, just early voting in general.
yeah,
Because like
yeah,
Village Hall here in Niles today, they have early voting going on. I was handing out referendum flyers saying like, here's what the referendum means and here's why we think it should be passed. So there's people that are really happy to get the cards. Some of them gave them back to me after they voted, and they're like, thank you very much for telling," because they didn't know what was going on.
sure, sure,
So
sure.
it's all about like informing the public and helping them make a decision for themselves. So,
Right. And those referendums, the propositions can be very wordy and can
mhm.
be kind of confusing. And then you're kind of like, oh, yes, no. Well, it can be, we have one here in Lake County for the Forest Preserve District, and I think it's pretty plain, which I think is good because but a lot of times it can be very verbose and you have no clue as to what it really is, where it's a little ambivalent as to what it is. So, but it's good that you're out there helping people sift through all that.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I actually was going to sit out this one, but because I heard that nobody else was helping, I jumped back in and helped out.
Good for you. Good for you.
So
Good for you.
I do want to change subject now.
Absolutely.
Um, when did you get into radio? What got you into it? And like, what was your first like opportunity that you took that got you in there?
Well, I've always been fascinated by radio from the time I was like 10 years old. And maybe even before that, when I was living in Canton, Ohio, and we had a little radio receiver, and I could get 50,000 watt WLS stick Biondi with the top 40 hits. My sister was 16, I was 8 years old. And I thought, how magical. That guy's in Chicago. I'm hundreds of miles away. And here he is. And there was something about it that just triggered me. And so from the time I was a kid, I was just fascinated with radio broadcasting. Now, when did I actually have a chance to get into radio? I was very fortunate. Our high school, Glenbard West High School in Glen Ellen, we then moved from Ohio to Glen Ellen, Illinois. Glenbard West had its own FM radio station, which actually didn't come about until my senior year of high school. And that was in 1969, 1970. And what was interesting too, there'd been a lot of hype that was when I was a freshman, we're going to have this radio station, but it took that many years to get the frequency. So that was a big deal, WGHS, and did some sports broadcasting on there that I enjoyed, and then had my own little 10-minute interview show where I would interview mostly athletes. I was an athlete when I was in high school, so it was easy. It was easy to talk that talk, and so it was just a really fun thing. So that's where I really started to get into it. And then when I went to a small college, Carroll College, which has since grown since I've been there, and it's now Carroll University. Really, I was just on the campus for a reunion just a few weeks ago. It's huge now, but they had at the time an FM radio station, and so for 4 years I did radio there too, and didn't really make the move. Decide, as a career back then, radio was different back then. It was hard business to get into. For if you figure at every radio station you had maybe six announcers, and for those six announcers you had literally 1,000 people trying to get the job because radio was so popular back then. And if you got to a bigger market, say into Chicago, New York, or LA, it was big money too. Not to mention the notoriety you would have as well. And Milwaukee was a pretty good sized market at that time too. So that was always sort of the goal. If but at the same token, you're thinking, well, is this really a secure business? Do you want to go into this? And so I did make the leap into it. After I graduated, I went to graduate school in radio, TV, film at Bowling Green State University, and was debating whether or not to go into radio. Also thinking of TV and film as well. And I was taking this class called The History of Broadcasting, which with a pretty well-known professor who had written a bunch of books. And talking to him, I don't know, after class in his office, he said, "So what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I guess I really want to be on the radio." He said, "What the hell are you doing in grad school? Get out there and do it." So I left grad school and then later on finished up, down the line. And that's why I decided to make the jump into radio. Made some tapes. And back in those times, you would make these little reel-to-reel tapes. So they were kind of costly. You'd have to go buy these like 5-minute reel-to-reel tapes. And then you would send those out. And those would be like audition tapes or what they call air checks. And you send out a resume and a letter to a radio station. And in that time, I must have sent out probably about, I don't know, 50, 60 radio stations, mostly in little towns in Wisconsin. Didn't get one response,
Oh,
not one response. Uh, and later on, when I found out, when I finally did get into radio, I found out that when I was at stations, you'd get program directors would get all these tapes for kids or students, I should say, rather young adults trying to get into radio. And those would end up being, they would erase them and then just use the tapes for like newscasts and things like that. I
oh wow.
because they didn't want to listen to all that stuff. You're getting all these boxes of tapes coming in and resumes. How do you make a decision? So
Yeah.
at that time, I decided. I remember telling my dad and talking to my mom and dad. I said, I think the best thing is just go knock on doors. Which, by the way, now you really can't do. But at the time, this is 1975, you could go knock on doors. So I put a bunch of my tapes, my resumes in the back of my 1969 Chevy Nova, and I plotted out station for station in the state of Wisconsin, in Illinois, and then went from town to town. I'd show up and knock on the door and say, "I'm looking for a radio job." And in some cases, they'd say, "Well, we don't have one for you. Goodbye." Other cases, they might say, "Well, something might show up. Would you like to do a live audition for us?" And they take you in the recording studio, do a live audition, and then that would be it. You never knew what could happen. So while I was on that trip, I was gone for almost 3 or 4 weeks, going from station to station and crashing on buddies who lived in college at dorm rooms or wherever I could find a place, sleeping in my car. Didn't have a lot of money. And got a call from 1490 radio in Beloit, WGEZ Top 40. And they said, "Hey, we got an opening for Saturday night only. Would you like to take the job?" Now, back then we didn't have cell phones. So how did I get that information? Well, every couple of days I'd call my parents. I had given my parents their home phone, which is the old rotary phone. And so I would call them from time to time from a phone booth and ask them, has there been any information? I remember my dad saying, "Yes, you got this call from WGZ somewhere in Beloit. This guy wants you." I said, "When did he call?" "Oh, 2 days ago." So, I called him. So it wasn't like now where I could just, I was just texting you about I'm having issues with
Yeah.
Zoom. Everything was kind of delayed. So I drove down there and I started work there doing top 40 on the weekends. That was my first professional job, getting paid $2.50 an hour.
Wow. But back that during that time, like what would like a normal like taking a gas cost? Like,
That was as low as it goes. I mean, you probably could have done better working at McDonald's, but it was show business. Had my foot in the door. And then after that, somebody heard me from another station in Rockford and said, "We have an opening from midnight to 6 in the morning, 6 days a week, the graveyard shift. Would you like it?" And I was like, "Full time." And that was going to be $100 a week for 6 days a week, 1 week off a year. Would you like that job? So then I did that. I worked there too. And so
nice.
I was at WRWC, and that was more easy listening than top 40. And that was really a learning experience for me there because now I was working, every day. Also, when I got off the air, I was also in charge of writing the morning news. So I had to do all the, go to the police station and stuff in Beloit, Rockford, all the different towns around there. It was more than a 8-hour job. I mean, I'd sometimes get off at noon. catch a few hours, then you're back at work at midnight again. So it was a kind of a crazy life, but I had my foot in the door and I was in radio and I was in the Rockford market. So it was pretty, things were starting to move along.
You said it was 1976,
This would be 1975. So
75.
I was only at WGEZ for a couple months until I got that job at WRWC in Rockford.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like the physical media situation at the time, were you using vinyl or did
All
cassettes get
vinyl,
introduced? All
all
vinyl.
vinyl.
Okay.
And I can still remember at that easy listening station, you'd take out the album and then on certain cuts, they would have like these little plastic, how do I want to put it, stamps on it on the track itself so you couldn't play it because this was easy listening and they thought that might be too edgy.
Oh, wow.
And
So they censored the record in
pretty
a
much,
sense.
you'd have that a song there that you're thinking, well, this would be you see the album cover, oh, this is because I got to select my own music, which by the way is real rare at a lot of radio stations. So I got to select my a lot of stations you're having to read the liners that they say. But anyway, I remember getting out there looking at go, oh, this will be a good song. You go out and go, oh hell, he's censored that one, and yeah, that could be kind of frustrating. Also, working the graveyard shift, you get some pretty strange listeners. I was big with the two prisons that were in the area. Prisoners, inmates who were up late.
Well, that's something I wouldn't have thought about. But hey, yeah, they have to do something. Listen to radio. Why not?
Right. So they didn't have a TV. They had a transistor radio. So I actually got some fan mail from the inmates. Uh,
That's awesome, man. And this is like it could be its own TV show in itself.
Oh yeah,
Just
this
like
is.
the inmates writing to the radio hosts.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I listen to you all the time and so late. Like, oh, this is great.
Well, then you got the then we had like nurses who are up with graveyard shifts. They'd have you on listening, and then you got your people who were maybe had they were drinking a little too much. They were up late at night. They were lonely. I would have a couple people would call me every night, probably just to talk, but they'd always have a request. And I had this one woman every night, and she'd go, and I had a fake name back then too, because back in those days, Wunderlich just sounded too many syllables, too odd. They liked the two-syllable words, so They said you're going to be Jim Dively, so I was Jim Dively. So you're kind of this alias that you're playing, which was sort of odd in a way too, a little inauthentic. But I would get the same woman who would call every night and go, Mr. Dively. Listen to every night. Would you play Invitation by Tony Bennett? And I go, yes. You asked for that the night yesterday and the day before, and I'll play it again for you. I mean, she would ask for the same song every night. Yeah, 3 in the morning. Why not? So
That's
anyway,
pretty
you know what?
cool.
It was a good experience, but horrible for your health. I'm not that graveyard shift. Back in those days, we didn't have air conditioning. So if it was really hot during the summer, it was really hard to sleep. And if you open up the windows, everybody's outside and playing, and it just was you could never really get used to that the lifestyle. I know some people can, but I want to be out playing tennis or riding my bike or whatever. It was just really hard. And then when you're working on 4th of July and everybody's off, you're working on Friday, every Friday and Saturday night. You have to, I mean, it
Mhm.
really creeps into your uh, social life and having a balanced life.
Yeah, I've
So,
taken on a few I've done overnight security.
okay.
And like I thought, oh, no problem. I can keep this job and start working a day job. And I had day exhaustion
Oh, yeah.
and it was really scary. So I had to drop the security job.
Oh, yeah. 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 It was, and so did that for a little while. And then that's when I decided I would at that time, make the leap into teaching, but also keep working in radio. So I went back to school while I was working in radio. So I was, and got my certificate at Northern and the master's. And then at the same time I was working at the radio station, and then got a job in Janesville, Wisconsin, where I was teaching English and was the head tennis coach there. And then also had this regular Sunday job at WBEL in Beloit, working there on Sundays, the one day I had off, because I wanted to keep my toe in the radio. And then also during summers, they had what they had called, they needed vacation relief people. Yeah, I was a teacher, so I had my summers kind of off, but I would work at the radio station because maybe the morning guy was gone, and then the guy who was doing middays would do that. I do the midday show, so I got to stay in radio, and those were 4 years where I was at Janesville Craig High School. Wonderful years teaching English and coaching tennis. Still keep up with a lot of folks there, and then had the radio gig, and then kind of still wanted to chase the carrot. So after 4 years of that, that's when I decided to make the leap and got a job at a suburban Milwaukee radio station. The summer of this would be 1980 now. And so resigned from Janesville Craig as a teacher there, and then went back into radio again. And then was at that suburban station for a few months. I was doing the morning show. It was good. It was a fun show because I had a newscaster who, in his off hours, was a comedian. So we really kind of had a lot of fun back and forth. Pete Christensen even had a couple comedy albums out, but then he was a newscaster. So he had these kind of dual personalities. And that was a really great job because I got to interview a lot of people, whether, the governor of Wisconsin and some other when Milwaukee would have like a musician come in who was pretty well known, you get to interview them. And so I was doing this morning show, having a lot of fun. And then I got a job at a much bigger radio station in Milwaukee and worked there. And that's where I had that big band show and that was good money too. And then, the radio career was there for a couple of years. So,
What made you decide to get into teaching?
I think part of it, radio can be kind of lonely if you don't have a shift during the day. And I noticed when I had my afternoon drive show, another station in Milwaukee, I really enjoyed that because there were people around. And there was a newscast or whatever. But like when I was doing my big band show, even though it had a significant audience, we had at that time 10,000 listeners per quarter hour. So you really had a lot of, and then you had phone calls and stuff like that. But I was the only one at the radio station because everyone else was gone. Sales was gone, news was gone. Everybody's pretty much gone. The people that kind of traffic all those different areas in radio, they were gone. So it was kind of even though you had these people listening and you had phone calls, you weren't really talking. I missed that whole social interaction.
Yeah.
And I think with teaching, you get that rush of having that captive audience in front of you who have to listen to your jokes. Even if they want to roll their eyes, they have to listen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't get it out. The door's locked. You are stuck.
I got you for 47 minutes.
Oh, people start getting ruffling a few minutes before the bell. I'm like, no, you're hostage. You're captive, man. You can't go anywhere. You got to still listen to this drivel that's coming out of my mouth. So, these pearls of wisdom. Yeah, I mean, I love, and it's, high school students are pretty fun, to say the least. I mean, there's a lot of, it's a lot of wisecracks back and forth too. I mean, it just always was just kept you on your toes. It's just, you're making all these decisions one after another in a short amount of time, and hopefully you make the right decision and you don't hurt a student in any way. And when a student succeeds, you feel that real, feel good about it. I mean, it's a great job. I mean, and then when I got the gig at Maine East, that was like the perfect job, teaching radio, TV, and film. I still had one foot in the broadcasting industry, so to speak, and then teaching what I love. And it was just, those years at Maine East are a joy. I mean, and then to have students who elect to take the class for the most part, And so they enjoyed being there. It was just, it's just a real fun job. So that's a real long answer, but I think it's just kind of the stimulation, the fun, the buzz, and then that intellectual academic aspect too, where you're kind of having to keep on your toes, and particularly if you have a discussion and when the students are kind of taking hold of the discussion, it's kind of a magical time, really is.
Excellent. Yeah, what year did you start at Maine East?
So I started there in '85 and was there until 2012. So that's a big chunk of my life, 27 years. And the relationships you get with students and staff. Some of my dearest friends are teachers from Maine East. Yeah, I just went on a bike ride with two of them on Friday, who have since retired. Mr. Granzik and Mr. Kessler, better known as Steve and Chuck to me.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah, so and I don't know if you remember Mr. Sentato, Tomas Sentato, or Mr. Hessert, Dave Hessert. Yeah, so
yeah.
all these relationships you keep, and they're very precious. And yeah, and then really just students who you stay in touch with, like yourself. And so it's a very, very rewarding job. Not to say that broadcasting and radio wasn't. I value those years very much. But and what's interesting, I had all these different jobs, a lot of different radio stations, which we didn't get into because I don't want to bore people. But I was at a lot of different radio stations, Q106 in Madison, WKDC in Elmhurst. I mean, go on and on. But I think that the fact that I was there for 27 years, up until then, I was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it gave
And
you stability there. Yeah.
yeah, and then when I got to Maine East, I think I was like 32, 33, something like that. And I really thought, oh, I'll do this for a couple of years. And, I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't really get any better than this. This is pretty darn cool job. And there aren't many jobs like this, teaching radio, TV, film, having your own radio station, having your own TV station, having a film laboratory. I mean, my goodness, it was like a college atmosphere. And then and then all the alumni that would, continue to come back and visit. It was just a real, it doesn't get any better, really. And then, our fine arts department was full of just great personalities and people that I just really enjoyed being with. So
Have you visited the new remodeled
I
East or
have
not
not
yet?
gone to the new remodel, and I was just on the phone actually with the guy who succeeded me, Phil Ash, who I keep in touch with,
Yeah,
who's doing a great, great job there. And he said, I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago. He said, you got to get, I don't know what my problem's been. And also Tomas and Hesser, but he says, you got to come back. Give me a call anytime. So I am planning on going back in November. I'm anxious to see the new facilities. Have you seen them?
I have not. I've only seen pictures. I kind
Well,
of
I've
don't
seen
want to
pictures. I've
step in
seen
there.
pictures. Yeah. I've seen pictures, but I want to see it. Yeah.
So I'm gonna explain to our audience here. So like the high
Sure.
school had this, the high school's like five different buildings, but like in the middle was called Center Court. And it was like a second level fine arts department. So you had photography, you had radio and TV broadcasting, you had the art classes, and then you had, I think, a staff room in this square building that was connecting to the main building that wraps around that you see in the front.
Right.
And the remodel went and took out the entire broadcasting area. That entire center court's now like a lounge that's like 2 stories tall and has stairs. And like just everything that remember from attending, I think is no longer there. And that's part of
There
why
is
I
a
haven't gone.
there's a speck of dust of me there though, I think.
Does it have like like a museum with the like okay, here goes the rope. You can go see the man, like I don't know if they kept anything from that old building, but
I don't
I'm
know because we had
glad.
all those plaques from people like
Yeah,
yourself who had won all these awards. We had that in that little lounge area we had by the radio station. I mean, it was a really nice setup. Let's face the facts. I mean, it
yes,
was
that was excellent.
I mean, I
I
had my
liked
own
that.
classroom, I had my own office. Then you had your own classroom in the TV station. You had this big TV studio, everything connected. I mean, it was a little, I called it my little fiefdom. I mean, it was just really something else. And, but I always wondered, did they keep all those plaques that the kids had won first place here and all that?
I think they did keep them. I don't know if all of them, but
Yeah.
they had to have. It was such a centerpiece of
I
that
don't know though.
department.
They could maybe be down in the basement in a box somewhere now. I don't if we're lucky.
Yeah, right. When you were leaving or like getting planning to retire, I know I had visited prior to that, and I walked in on a day when you were sorting out a bunch of the studio tapes from all of the classes, and you were trying to condense down the collection that was there. I think you were keeping all the highlights, the ones that made it to the monthly
Magazine
reels,
show.
the
Yeah.
magazine. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, how was that downsizing that whole
Oh,
collection for you? How
oh
long
my
did that
God.
take?
Well, that actually, I was there a long after I retired. I was like I walked out the door that day. I mean, I was there another couple of days to a week. Retirement really didn't start until about a week after that because I was just trying to sort all that stuff out. You know, we were able to save and catalog a lot of those three-quarter inch tapes, surprisingly,
That's
and
great.
VHS tapes. They're all, well, they used to be in C203, but I don't think C203 exists anymore.
For our viewers, that was like the classroom for the radio. We had the microphones and everything, and the outer perimeter of the entire classroom had these like wooden cupboards that were really deep, and that's where all of these videotapes were in, right? At
Excellent
least most of
description,
them.
by the way. And but you're right. And all these tapes were in there. I mean, literally, I think we went up to about 800 tapes, maybe a little more than that. I think actually we were in the thousands at that time because we started in '85. So I'm sure it was, 1,400 tapes or something, three-quarter inch VHS tapes because a lot of stuff back then was still analog. And yeah, I don't know what happened to all that. I mean, you're going back. Also, there were V shows there and things like that, musicals. But and then a lot of tapes of we had shows. You know, you had Chalk Talk back then, News Brief. There was Metalheads, a lot. Who by the way, Def Leppard appeared on, if you can believe that. But
No way.
they weren't big back then. They weren't big.
What
Um,
year? What year did they?
oh God, 85, 86, like back and then. And then we had Metallica, I think it was either Megadeth or Metallica. Because there was a show called Metalheads with Nick Allard, and he was a go-getter. And and I didn't really know anything about Iron Maiden or Ozzy Osbourne or all that, but I sure did after that show. And they do a talk show about the latest songs coming out. And then, we were able to get music videos too. We were able to show those as well. That was the era of MTV and all that. So that show was very interesting. And yeah, he'd get all kinds of great guests. And at the times they weren't that well known and probably were just starting but he had his antenna up, that's for sure. And Nick actually went into broadcasting for a while. He was working for ESPN. I'm not sure if he's still in the industry or not. From metalheads to ESPN.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of the classmates I have like we're still doing we're still in the business. Like our passion is still here. And so yeah, and I'm
The
glad to hear that
creativity
for
that
others
you
too.
got, really, I would just kind of let out the rope, so to speak, and you guys would just pull it. I mean, it was the creativity that the students had. I'll see stuff on TV and I'll go like today, and I'll go, God, stuff the kids were doing is so much better than what I'm seeing here. I mean, the talent, particularly when it came to like commercials, PSAs, uh, silent movies. I mean, just incredible music videos. I mean, some of the stuff was just amazing. And like I said, when I hear a song, a lot of times, I just yesterday there was a song on from REM, and I remember Eric Kinsel had done a video to this particular song, and I was just like, I just went back in time, and it was just one of those things where, wow, these projects that you and all these other students did were really mesmerizing. Some great stuff. Trailers too, movie trailers. Some of the folks did were just, knock your socks off. So, I feel like I was really more of a facilitator,
Yeah,
and
you kept it very fun for everybody.
I
With
felt that students would just take, they'd take maybe a project idea, and then then they might say, hey, we want to do this. And maybe that really wasn't the intent of the project. But I'm thinking, well, you know what? That's actually a better idea. Yeah, go for it. And so there was a lot of, that kind of back and forth. And a lot of times with the broadcasting for students, too, at the end of the year, I was asked them about particular units. And then they'd be very blunt. They'd say, well, that was a good one. That one sucked. Get rid of that. Don't ever do animation again. That was terrible.
okay, that makes me think of the puppet project. But you were not like serious about that. You were not trying to like tell it this guy in that project. Like you were not sincere about it, but you're like, this is one of the worst scripts I've ever read. Don't try to do this again. Get out of my like, oh, and then you laughed afterward like this. It was just like, man, brutal teacher. But no, it was cool. Just seeing that duality for a brief second. It's like, oh man, like we're so thankful to have you as a teacher.
Well, I
Oh,
had so much fun. And, also I had a department chairman who kind of would let you, there's other department chairmen who might box you in. And we had the freedom, and that was just, I thank Dave Jeffers and Ed Eubanks. I mean, they were all, and they would come in a lot too. Their office was so close by. So, a lot of times teachers, the department chairman comes in like once or twice a year just to do this big observation. Whereas Dave and Ed, Mr. Jeffers and also Mr. Eubanks to the students, they would come in. They may even say that morning, "Hey, what's going on broadcasting day? I have a few minutes. I might just come in." I said, "Oh, we're doing such and such. Oh, we're doing puppets."
yeah.
Or, it could be something. Well, we're doing a video demonstration. These guys are bringing a lobster, and they're going to make a lobster kind of strike a pose. And what, so they were in and out all the time, and then they'd walk in and go, "What the hell's going on in here?" But the students were just so, they just had a lot of fun, and also, it wasn't like you could do video on your phone back in the day. We were the only inn in town. We
Yeah,
had, if you go back to 85 and all the way up to maybe 2000 or so, if you were going to do television, you really had to come through our door. If you were going to edit, you had to come through our door. Now people can do it on their phone.
because
But
you had that access to the TV stations and the radio stations through the high school at Van East, and
exactly.
people were able to use that as opposed to like a major station. That's the only thing that else was available,
Well,
right?
yeah, and you really kids couldn't do it at home. They didn't have the access. Cameras are too expensive. We had them, and then we had a channel. Whether it was channel 82 at one point or another channel, channels would change on Comcast and TCI. But that was a big deal too. And then if you could get your program out, your show out there, we had that one spot, 11 a.m. to noon, that was shown. Let's see, we had bicycle tapes over to where was it? Sorry, Steve, I'm going back in time now, but over by Old Orchard, where the Comcast building was, and that went out to about 17 different communities. And I can remember this was back in the day, but students would say they'd be walking down, and maybe they were in a particular video or something, and they'd get recognized because somebody saw them on television. So we had, they had that outlet too. So you were creating, but then you had the opportunity that would be visible to the patrons and community that was available. So it was a great. My timing was good. It was really kind of a golden era for that. It really was.
The Comcast building. Can you talk more about that? Because I
The
don't think
Comcast.
yeah.
You mean you're talking about the?
You were talking about the area with the
Oh, okay. So
Comcast building. I'm not familiar.
well, originally we had our own channel. We had channel 82, and then we had a channel in Niles, and then ultimately we found out we could get more a wider audience if we would bicycle tapes, that's a term meaning take the tape over to Comcast directly, drop it off, and you would do that, and I would take whether it be magazine show, V show, or whatever, and then that would be broadcast to a wide variety of communities, and that worked out really well. So there was that opportunity. And Comcast, and I actually back then I don't know if it was called Comcast. To tell you the truth, Steve, I think
Yeah.
it could have been TCI and CableNet. Those changed. I think by the time I left, it was Comcast. But you went through a lot of
There were,
different
we
cable
had,
services.
like I did some 3/4 inch tape archiving at the Niles Museum.
Okay,
So there was Cablevision in the area for the Village broadcasts, and
that's
that was
it.
all from early 80s.
Yes, it's Cablevision. And then what was interesting too, we used to take they would let us have their truck, and uh, and then one of there was a guy who worked there who would help out. And if we wanted to tape a football game or a basketball game, they'd bring the truck over, and the kids would be able to use all that stuff. We'd use our cameras and then their technology that was in the truck, which is like a special effects generator, but also they had instant replay and things like that. And we set all this up and do all kinds of sportscasts. Even did a baseball game, which was
Nice.
really difficult to do because you had to string a lot of cable for that. But we did, football games and basketball games and that type of thing as well. So that was really a great experience. In fact, if you listen to Andy Mazer on WGN, he was, very involved in sports broadcasting back in the day and continued to do it and still is doing it today.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've done a lot of sporting events. Are there any particular games or sports in general that you've enjoyed the most? Like, do you
Probably
have
bas
favorites?
Probably basketball. One, it was indoors. So it was just, I think from a technical standpoint, you had it just made it easier. If you had to grab something from the TV station, you could just run back from the gym and get it. Also, it was easier to set up the announcers as well. You didn't have to worry about weather. I mean, we had one football game where both cameras, the wind was so strong it blew over both cameras, and we had them duct taped down and everything else.
Oh,
They
wow.
didn't get damaged, but we couldn't. I think we had a whole quarter where we couldn't broadcast. Let's get those cameras back up. And
I'll
it was
bet. Yeah.
really cold. So, and I think basketball, we had some really good basketball teams at Maine East at the time too. There was one game we broadcast where we actually beat Evanston, and that was a really big deal. And football, I think the football team struggled more than basketball did in those years. So those games were more exciting from a basketball end of it. We never did do a swim meet. That would have been kind of fun to do. It would have been fun to do like a water polo or something like that. Baseball was one of the more difficult things we did. And we never did hockey either. We had a hockey club, but we didn't have a hockey team. But we investigated it, but we got video of it that we would use and show on our news brief show. Um, which that was fun because that was those shows were live, and we would do live news shows, live sports talk shows, things like that. The Chalk Talk show was fun because that was three or four kids talking sports. It was ripped off from the old sports writer show that was on WGN TV. But then what we would do, we'd have professionals come in, and whether it was, well, I don't know if people would even know him now, but Mark Giangreco had been like an NBC sports anchor. He came in. A lot of the Tribune writers, they come in and be part of the show. And what was so interesting with the students, they were so professional. They didn't go googly eye. Oh, here's Mark Giangreco for NBC in Chicago. He was just part of the show. And well, Mark, what do you think? And I mean, and it was just kind of neat that, hey, we're all on the same level. We're all broadcasters. Maybe we're broadcasting in a different, smaller market, but we're still all broadcasters. And you're on our show. And I thought the kids were always really, it was just really neat to see how professional they'd be. A couple of the kids also got press passes. And remember Steve Yesner, one student, he was very ambitious. He got a press pass with the Chicago Bulls, Chicago Blackhawks. He was also got Cubs, all this stuff. and he would come back literally with interviews with like Scottie Pippen
Wow.
because he had access to them, and that was pretty cool too because they didn't know what WMTH. It was just another station. So I think the kids took advantage of the facility, what it had to offer. I think they looked at it as a privilege and just really maxed out on it as much as they could.
And is it true that Maine WMTH for Maine East High School is the oldest and continuously running radio station?
In the
For
in in the U.S. in the United States, and you would think maybe that could be global. I don't know. Maybe there's one in Lebanon or something, but I don't
but so
know.
we can say the longest running in the nation.
Yes. Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's still
Continually.
yeah, and
So
it's still broadcasting to this day.
yeah. Yeah. So I believe it started in either 57 or 59. I have to look at the back of my t-shirt. Because one year we were celebrating the 50th, I think it was. And so I had t-shirts made up and all the kids had to wear them. I still have a couple of those upstairs. I got to dust them off and check the back. But I think it was 57, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a long time. Harrison Ford had been on was on the staff. So was Hillary Clinton. There's, well, Rich Coase was
Yep.
on too as well.
Yep. Then they all attended Maine East High School as
Yeah,
well for people watching here. Yeah,
Swangoli, Swangoli. Yeah.
yeah, and he actually he visited recently too. I know I think he took the last tour that they had of everything. They have this group on Facebook where they let us know if they're going to be having a group tour every now and then.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
He
it's
comes
kind of cool.
back frequently. Costa, actually, a huge article on him in yesterday's Chicago Tribune. Huge. Whole
I'll have to
section.
check that out.
Yeah, he's been going forever. Yeah, Maine East grad.
Yeah, we have that wall by the theater building, just on the
Yes,
outside, showing all of our past alumni that have gotten, I guess, to the top of the media pool, right?
right. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, you like to hammer that.
Here's here's like the t dozen people that like everybody knows, right?
It's a small sample.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually, there are a lot of people in the business who maybe they're not like an anchor man or something like that, but they're doing behind the scenes stuff, and maybe they're a film editor for Walt Disney, or they're working for NBC out in Los Angeles. I mean, there are a lot of people who are doing behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and those, I mean, those are some of the most important jobs too.
I think one student who said it well to me, though, I really thought it was neat. He's like a big mucky muck in this Fortune 500 company, and he's an attorney. And I had him for 4 years. He'd come back to visit, and he had said the thing he learned from broadcasting: problem solution. Got a problem here because there's so many problems when you're making a movie or a film. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just you are juggling a lot. And problem, how am I going to solve it? Oh my, the guy that I casted to do this all of a sudden is sick. Now what do we do? Or I don't have power over here, but I have to shoot this shot. Or I thought it was going to rain now. I was going to have that rain shot. Now I don't have it. Maybe I can get a hose and I can put it on the front of the windshield. And it'll look like they can talk in the car to look like rain's coming down there. You start to kind of think out of the box, that kind of problem solution. When
Yeah,
things they don't go according to plan. And then now you have to kind of figure out how am I, as a director or whatever, how am I going to weave around this?
I used that myself. And yeah, on my 2012 production of The Man, we had a bar scene. So we used a real bar as location A, but we had a backup location, my home basement that has a built-in bar and everything.
Perfect.
So we had the backup, and then when we got to the bar, there was a disgruntled employee, didn't want to lower the music in the bar. He raised it on me. Did it like looked me in the eye and just turned the dial.
Oh gosh.
And then he was letting the happy patrons wander over to our set and start talking to the actors. Ah, are you shooting a movie? And I'm looking at my crew like, oh no, we have to do something. So I got my assistant director to do the call of wrap and take everything to location B. And everybody on the crew and the cast thought that the second location was like miles ahead of the first one. It
Isn't
was
that interesting?
it was isolated. There were all of the problems we did have were solved, and everything was peaceful. And there was just that ambiance, and then everybody was in the zone after that. We were so distracted by everything going on,
Sure,
and it
sure,
was a big problem.
sure,
So.
sure.
But that's one example. Like I've used that after leaving your teachings. So
Sure,
it's
sure. I mean, how do I figure out a way around this? And I think I think broadcasting allows you to do that in so many levels. So
yeah, and I do like that I took radio first, and I think that's the introductory classes, broadcasting one with radio, and then you go into TV broadcasting later on. I do like being introduced that way. Like I would do the same thing if I were to be teaching someone that because you
yeah,
get to figure out where your voice is at, and then you could work on your presentation later on with video.
and then when you are in radio, you are kind of your own producer, director, sound effects man. The whole you're a Foley artist, you're everything. And yeah, the radio unit to me was always important. I think you did get a lot of the audio down and, like you're saying, vocal qualities and things like that, but also how to run a mixer. And audio is, you know, people never talk about audio, but if you don't do it right, you notice it.
I
Have
still remember a quote from Robinson, St. Louis. You're
you?
living in the red. You're living in the red.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
And like even like when I'm driving and I'm seeing the RPMs go up, I see the red and I'm like, ah, don't live in the red, Steve.
Probably a good metaphor for life too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't push it too hard,
Don't
basically.
push it
Yeah.
too hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep the volume at a decent level. Yeah. I like that's great.
Yeah. And I think you actually had me uh team with Robinson, so you had put us into groups and stuff. And so like I still have most of these projects. I have them
Oh,
on an
that's
archive
awesome.
drive. So I mean, I cherish those things, but it's also like to look back and see like where did I start and look at where I'm at now. If I'm ever discouraged about where I'm at now, I can look back to what I've done and I go, wow, I did that last night. I forgot I filmed a women's lacrosse tournament, pee wee hockey, bantam football. I forgot about a lot of those things because I'm so invested in what I'm doing right now. And I'm not filming the sports right now. It's more the musician stuff. But it's just like, wow. Uh it's good inspiration. And like you gave us a solid foundation to build upon. So I want to thank you again for that as well.
Yeah, I think about Robinson. Great enthusiasm,
He's a
million dollar,
football coach.
million dollar smile.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Just a $1 million smile, man. I tell you, yeah, he can light up a room. There's no doubt about it. I'm glad to hear that. Where's he coaching?
Um it's down south. I I knew
He went to Elmhurst College. I remember I was in touch with him a little bit. Didn't he go to Elmhurst? I
yes,
thought
he did.
this is way
Yeah.
back. Now this is way back, but I think he went to Elmhurst, was successful there.
I was filming at Homewood for a coach, and I think I ran into him on the field there,
Oh,
and
great.
so I was able to talk to him there. It's cool. It's just like I hadn't seen him in years, so ran into him, and he's a coach now.
He'd
But
be a
I don't
good.
know if he's still a coach right now, but he
Yeah,
probably is.
yeah, right up his alley. He'd be very good. Well, you played football too, didn't you? For a
I
couple.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Freshman year, I played.
yeah.
Yeah, I met my friend Zach Carter, who I still talk to this day.
Well, interesting. That's
Yeah.
neat. That's
And
great.
like we were like fish out of water on that team because we ended up both doing like theater later on. So it's like, oh man, this isn't wild how like we meet doing something we don't love and then we end up like being friends for life and like doing stuff we loved along.
That's a great story, Steve. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to try a little bit of everything. I know I can't. There's not enough time, but I'm
Right.
glad I chose to get into the film and video industry. Is I'm comfortable here doing all of this.
That's awesome. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it's great. Thank you. And I don't know, I I had a long time I was thinking about having you on here. It's been a few months that I was thinking about bringing new guests on my channel. I've only had one guest for the past 2.5 years, Tom Althouse, and that that's finished. He's doing his own thing now. So I wanted to see who else I could bring on, and you were the first on my list.
Well,
So
thank you so much. This has been very much of a pleasure. Speaking of football, my wife and I are going to head over and see our grandson. He's plays for the Cary football team, and they
oh
have a
nice.
game over at Dundee Crown. So we're heading over there for his 4:30 game uh, after I get off here. So it'd be fun to see him, and I think he's going to make the move from football to possibly fine arts too. So we'll see. It's funny you mentioned that because we think this is his last game. So it's the fact that you mentioned that because I had mentioned Ann the other night. I said, well, maybe he'll end up, with something completely different, like theater or something like that. You just never know. So,
Awesome. Well, Jim, it was great having you on here.
so fun.
You're always welcome to come back. Uh,
Thank you.
it's a pleasure having you. I love your infectious laugh. I can't get enough of it. But it's you. That is you. This is Jim Wunderlich. He is just a radiant ball of light and energy. So
Steve, so nice to say, man. This has been a real pleasure going down memory lane and stuff I hadn't thought about before. It was fun to kind of reignite that in my brain. Really, really fun. We have to get together though. Panera, wherever, cup of
yeah,
coffee
we got to get a bite to eat and a cup
up
of coffee.
close. And I want to hear about your political career a little bit more too. That'd be fun.
Yeah, part two was kind of interesting. The library stuff. I'll have to
Yeah,
talk to you about
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Hey, this has been fun. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, thank you, Jim. And you have a great rest of your day and enjoy your time with your grandkids. And yeah, until the next one, I look forward to seeing you. I hope you take care of yourself.
Okay, take care. You're the best. Take care, Steve.
Awesome. All right.
Bye bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. That was Jim Wunderlich. And great man. I like having him um around me. So like he said, I've met up and had meals with him before. Actually invited him to the 10-year reunion for our class, and he showed up. And he was talking and just smoozing, just having conversation with everybody. He's very relatable. And yeah, the stories, he has a bunch of stories. And he's in the radio and TV industry on on a more personal level, if you say. But he did you heard what he said. He had a bunch of these radio stations he named off early in the show, and I'm gonna have to go back and listen to them and research where they're at and everything, because I like to do that stuff. But yeah, if you guys are watching for the first time, please subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content like this. Um, Jim was a teacher of mine at Maine East High School, and you can tell like he's had an influence on my life and a very positive one. And I just wanted to pay respects to that today and give Jim his flowers and just catch up with an old friend because that's really what it's all about. Just catching up with an old friend. And as far as the future interviews I'll be doing, I have a few different guests that I am lining up. Jim was the first guest for this new uh, I guess you could say format. It's now not much different than what I've been doing. If you've been here, you know this is what I do. So um I do have a few guests that I need to confirm with to get them on to the show. I do have November 9th set aside for one of my newer guests, and I'll reveal that when they confirm. And yeah, I should have at least two more guests coming on by the 9th, and three if you want to include Jeremy if he shows on Saturday. He expressed interest in joining me on the show, and he could have last Saturday too. I just didn't see it in time, so it's yeah, it's me. It's all me. I just don't see messages sometimes. Sorry, guys. I'm here though. You can see me here. And I'm not going away. Here I am. Yissilmissil Productions. If you haven't liked the video, please like it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. This is my main avenue to get my content out to the world. And Rumble is back up. BitChute is back up. Odyssey is back up. And TikTok is back up. Instagram is back up. And I'm saying back up as in case YouTube comes down, these sites will be there for everyone to use. And I have my platforms on there. So, and if you really need the link, I'll put a link tree in the description. I actually should do that so everybody can find everything in one spot. And we'll just go from there, everyone. If you haven't watched any of my older stuff on my channel yet, um, take a dive into it. There's a whole bunch of different content. And if you like what you see, let me know. Leave me a comment. And you can influence what I put out next, potentially. If you like what you see, say so, and I'll deliver more. That's all I gotta say. It's a collaborative effort. Without you viewers, um, it's only me watching the video, right? And it's kind of lonely, right? But that's not the case here. Yissilmissil Productions, 2,000 strong, and we're only going to get bigger. So please tune in when you can. We won't have too many scheduled shows in the immediate future, but make sure to check us out Saturday mornings because I'm going to try and hang out with all you guys here at 11 on Saturdays. And in between all that, we will be having these new interviews come out with some old friends. So you all take care. I will be going now. Um, Thank you, Brenda. I see you in the chat. And thank you, Zenray Q. I really appreciate you both here, leaving comments, dropping the likes. That's how this is all moving forward, everyone. We're all just having a good time here. We're all having fun. We're having fun. All right. Until the next one, class dismissed.